Welcome back to the Travel Tips and Trips podcast, where we talk all things travel. In this episode, I'm going to be diving in and reacting to some unpopular travel opinions. I've scoured the internet to find some of the more controversial opinions that are out there. And from my thoughts on the 7 world wonders, to the types of friends that make the best travel companions, and worst, I'll be discussing my views as an avid traveler and travel consultant. Now, before we dive in here, let me just be clear that everyone is entitled to their own views and opinions, and this is mostly just done for fun, so whether you're a seasoned traveler or just starting out, grab yourself a tea or coffee, get settled in, and let's chat about some controversial travel opinions. So we're going to start out with this one because it definitely hit a bit of a nerve for me. And this unpopular opinion reads, Machu Picchu is the least impressive of all the new 7 world wonders. So for reference, the other 6 are Taj Mahal, Great Wall of China, Petra, Chichen Itza, Roman Colosseum, and Christ the Redeemer. And although I have admittedly not been to all 7, I have been to the Colosseum, Chichen Itza, and of course, Machu Picchu. And I feel pretty strongly that of at least those 3, Machu Picchu is by far the most impressive. Now again, my personal opinion, they're entitled to theirs and I'm entitled to mine, but I was absolutely blown away by Machu Picchu. We traveled to Machu Picchu in Peru back in 2014. After I had studied quite a bit about it and other sites in university, so I was admittedly fairly familiar with the location, but I was not prepared for just how epic it was to see in person. The way that Machu Picchu is, I want to say nestled in the Andes, but I feel like that also kind of downplays the size of the site when you actually see it. So maybe I'll say hidden away. So really, it's just this beautiful site hidden away up in the Andes, surrounded by amazing views of the mountains around. And when it comes into view, no matter whether you're coming in through the main gates or hiking in, it feels like you're stepping back in time. It's honestly almost magical. There's this mystery that surrounds Machu Picchu as well that just drew me in. Not to say that there's not mystery to any of these other sites. That's not what I'm saying. But when you learn about the Incan civilization and their way of life and visit Machu Picchu, this amazing feat of engineering, you just can't help but be pulled into the mystery of it all. Now, what I will say is that especially if you don't really know what you're looking at, it could be underwhelming to walk up on if you've hiked the Inca Trail to see it. I have always, for me, found the opposite to be true, where the more effort that I put into reaching a destination, the more impressive I find it. But I could definitely see hiking for a few days and wishing there was more to Machu Picchu. No idea if that's the case with this commenter, but it's a possibility. So when it comes to Machu Picchu being the least impressive of the new 7, I am going to have to disagree with that one. Now, here's another one that actually hits home for me now, as it has to do with traveling with children. Not only do I have my own little one at home now, but I also plan travel for families and children through my consulting business. So this unpopular opinion says, traveling with children under 10 is stupid. How can you actually enjoy a vacation when all you're doing is panicking every 5 seconds? And to this I say, it really depends on the kid and the planning process, and I guess a little bit of your personality as a parent as well. Traveling with younger children can definitely be challenging. I'm not going to lie about that. I myself have only a nearly 2-year-old, so it's a little bit different, but I've also planned travel for families with older, younger kids, and when done right, it can be a really great way for families to bond and create these really amazing travel memories. The planning process is just different from what you would plan or how you would plan if you were traveling solo or with a group of adults or as a couple. For example, you need to be choosing age-appropriate activities and choosing destinations that are suitable for children, because not all destinations make traveling with children that easy. So by this, I mean skipping long hikes or cultural tours that could drag on, and instead maybe opting for plans that can be more fluid, like parks or beach days. Or if you want to do those cultural tours, hiring a private guide so that they can kind of move at your pace and the pace of your children. And not to attack the commenter here at all, because I totally understand the panic and the anxiety factor, but the personality of the parent really does play a role in the success of a trip as well. Being more laid back and flexible, especially with children along for the ride, is obviously going to make you better equipped to handle the unpredictability of travel with kids. And then obviously, if you're more structured or detail-oriented and prefer to have a really rigid itinerary, you are going to have a harder time traveling with kids for sure. And then before I move on, I'm just going to quickly mention that every child is also unique. So what works for one family doesn't often work for another. Some kids thrive in new environments, and then others get more overwhelmed and deal with that overwhelm in different ways. But from my own experiences traveling with kids and planning for families who travel with kids, I would say that if you do it right, it's so worth it to make it happen and make those memories. Now, up next, this next unpopular opinion reads, you don't need a tour guide. Sometimes they can be useful and get better access and also provide a lot of information, but a good guidebook will do that as well. So from the last unpopular opinion, we already know that you might want a private guide if you have kids, but children and traveling with children aside, if you listened to my Easter Island deep dive episode, you'll know that when we went to Easter Island, I used a guidebook for the most part to navigate us around, as opposed to a tour guide. So I do agree with this for the most part. There are definitely benefits, though, if you are going somewhere where a guide might be able to help you skip long lines as a part of that tour, or if you're in a destination for the very first time. I love to do walking tours with local guides to get a lay of the land and some local recommendations for food and other things to check out when I first arrive in a city for the first time. So yeah, I don't necessarily think that you always need a tour guide if you're willing to do a little bit of work yourself, but there is also a lot of benefits that come with tour guides if the price is right. So short and sweet, I agree and disagree. It's kind of just up to the amount of work that you want to put in with that one. So next unpopular opinion, let's just move right along. This one says, it's okay to travel solo to an exotic location without it having any bearing on your relationship status. And oh my gosh, I feel this so much because I travel solo without my husband fairly often, or at least I did before we had our little one. And there would be so much speculation about, is their relationship on the rocks, or why would she go to this destination without him? And then vice versa, my husband, he's done a few trips without me as well, that at the end of the day, I just wasn't interested in going on, honestly. And the same thing, there's that why is he there without you factor. That was a common question that I got. Now, I love traveling with my husband. I have done 6 months in South America with him. We were together every single moment, and I look back at that trip fondly. Absolutely love it. But I also love traveling with my girlfriends, and I love traveling solo. And just because you're in a relationship, it shouldn't mean that you have to sacrifice those other parts of yourself. I trust my partner, and my partner trusts me. So why not? Especially if it's to a destination that the other just isn't interested in visiting. Because let's face it, our bucket lists are not the same. There are destinations that I want to go to and will not sacrifice going to just because he doesn't want to go with me, and vice versa. Travel is expensive, and who wants to pay double to drag someone along with you to a destination that you've been dreaming of when they have absolutely zero interest in being there with you? So let's normalize solo travel in healthy relationships, shall we? Perfect. Now, what about this one, though? This one says, if you've seen one old castle or cathedral type building, you've seen them all. And I totally get where this sentiment is coming from, but I'm not sure that I actually agree. I feel like, yes, if you're in an old European city, traveling from cathedral to cathedral with no real interest or information about what makes each one unique or impressive, then they definitely do start to blend together. The same is true for temples in Thailand. If you're not too sure what you're looking at, it's just temple after temple. But if you choose the temples or castles or cathedrals that you plan on visiting with purpose, then you're a lot less likely to feel that way. I know in Scotland, for example, myself and my travel companion at the time, we stopped at too many castles to count probably, but they were chosen each one for their beautiful locations or for a specific piece of art that we wanted to see. One we even booked to stay the night in so that the experience there was completely different from our experience in others. So you can see a ton of that one thing somewhere and not have them all blend together if you kind of plan it properly. And if you're not that interested or interested enough to plan strategically, hot take, you probably shouldn't be adding those stops to your hit list anyway. And that's my unpopular travel opinion. I'll be the first to say that, tourist destinations are tourist destinations for a reason. Don't skip the Eiffel Tower just because it's, known to be a touristy spot to see. But on the flip side, I'm the first person to say, if you're not interested at all in seeing the Eiffel Tower, don't add it to your list just because it's everyone's bucket list item. You can go to Thailand or Scotland and not see a single temple or castle or cathedral if that's what you want. Travel the way you want, enjoy your travels the way you want. The world is yours to explore in the way that interests you most. And then I have one more here. This last one is another interesting one. I feel like this travel opinion is a little more controversial than some of the ones in my last unpopular travel opinions episode, but you tell me. Last one here is there can be a huge difference between your best friend and your best travel companion, and that's okay. Now, this one, I can't relate to this one enough. I have absolutely amazing friends that I love more than anything in the whole world, but would never want to travel with in any capacity at all. And truth be told, they'd probably never want to travel with me either. Our interests, budgets, bucket lists would just be so different despite having so much in common in our day-to-day lives. And I feel like people get so offended when a close friend doesn't want to vacation with them. And I guess I get it. Like, if you're just someone who has a bestie and all you're really thinking about is wanting to go somewhere and not go alone, and you just love spending time with them, then yeah, I could see that. But drill down to what you would both actually want to do, where you would want to go. And it's going to be way healthier for your friendship to avoid going on a trip together, knowing full well that one of you is going to be making sacrifices or be miserable, or both of you. For me personally, as someone who led group travel for quite a few years, it almost became second nature to me on my personal, for fun trips to cater to the person that I was traveling with, just because that was my job when I was working. And so in many instances, it would kind of ruin my trips to places in a way, because I would want to be having fun traveling with a person that I loved, but then I would be stressing myself out trying to find places that I know that they would want to eat, or that they would want to sleep, or I would not want to sleep in too late knowing that they wanted to get an early start to their day. So yeah, I know this is an unpopular one, but I wholeheartedly agree that you don't have to want to travel with your best friend from home. You can have a best travel companion that is not your best friend. All of that said, though, I am going to go ahead and end this short episode of Unpopular Travel Opinions here. If you enjoyed this format, be sure to let me know, and don't forget to subscribe for more travel tips and inspiration here on the Travel Tips and Trips podcast. And until I chat with you in the next one, stay great, travel safe, and I'll chat with you then.